Hi, Miss Nikki here. Welcome to Biology 201. This is a completely online human anatomy and physiology course. So all of the lab material and all of the exams will be delivered through Blackboard. So the announcement page, I post weekly announcements. Just make sure you check those out. I'm going to go to course information here. Office hours, instructor, how to access your Calhoun email. So over here, the Calhoun email button, this is how you initiate first contact. So when you select Calhoun email, you pick me, Effie Nikki, or instructor, you send me an email message, you have to open your Calhoun email to get a reply. It will not come back to the course. You'll have to go to My Calhoun and select your Outlook email, and that's where your message or your answer from me will be. But the reason that this is a good first start is that when you send an email from this Calhoun email tab inside this course, it automatically tags you as in this course. And I know who you are, what course you're in when you're asking me a question. If you send me an email from outside of Blackboard, I may not know who you are, at least especially within the first couple of days, right? I won't know who you are, what class you're in, and I teach 5 other classes. So this just helps facilitate understanding and communication, and then I can get back to you relatively quickly with a competent answer, right? Because I know who you are, where you're emailing me from. Okay, so first day tasks and instructions, you are already here because you watched the video. You can walk through all of that. Syllabus and syllabus quiz. You must take the syllabus quiz in order to be marked present in this course. So if you don't take the syllabus quiz, you get marked as absent, and if you're on any sort of financial aid, it can kick you out of the course. These are the course learning objectives, everything that we hope to accomplish in this semester. Course policies about communication, privacy, accessibility, and then if you do not have free Microsoft 365 products, you can get them here. You can also get them through the My Calhoun homepage, the same place you'd go to look at your Outlook email. So just kind of give you all that information. I want to stress that there's lots of independent reading in this online course. So you can't just skim things. You have to read them maybe once or twice. If you have any questions when you're reading something, please feel free to email me and ask me questions. That's fine. All right, course content. So we have 5 units here. You're going to open up the unit. I usually have a folder with some fun activities. Sometimes it'll be articles that are related to the topic that we're talking about. So sometimes they're fun. There's one farther down when we get to the nervous system. It's called Mouse Party, and you get to look at mice and how they behave when they're on different drugs, and what happens to the neurotransmitters and what happens to the brain. So those are kind of fun. All right, so I'm going to open up chapter 1 just to give you an example. So I'm telling you the items to complete. There is a lecture. This lecture here is exactly the same as this lecture here. I have an outline, so it's like a transcript of the PowerPoint if you don't want to look at the PowerPoint, if you like to read. And then there's the exam review questions. These are the questions that you must be able to answer if you want to pass the test. So I've given you kind of like how I would approach it, but feel free to do whatever works for you. But what you need to do is read the chapter, watch the video, right? I give you the lecture outline so you can make notes if you would like. I do this in my traditional class, so I've provided it for you. If you don't want the outline, if you want to make your own notes from the video, that's fine. And then the chapter review questions. So let me just pull them up here. So these are all the questions that you have to be able to answer if you want to do well in the course. And then we have our mastering A&P assignments. So you can see this is a lot of work. We're only halfway down the page, right? The dynamic study modules from mastering A&P, this is your homework. This counts as 20% of your grade. So I know it looks like 3. They break it up into sections. You can see this is textbook section 1 and 2. This is 3 and 4. This is 5 and 6. So they try to break it up in little chunks for you so you can work a little bit at a time. So don't get overwhelmed by the amount of assignments there are. They're pretty short. And it's basically going to ask you questions over and over again until you get them right. Some people like to do the dynamic study first and then read the textbook. Some people would rather read the textbook, do all the prep work, and then do the dynamic study modules. It's completely up to you. Now we move on to the lab component for chapter 1. So here's a list of the lab terms that you have to know. So up pops our terminology list eventually. Let's see. Maybe. Ah, it's being slow today. I don't know what the problem is. I'll have to double check on that. So there should be, there we go. There should be a list of terms for every lab that you have to be able to identify. So it's telling you dorsal cavity. Within the dorsal cavity, there's a cranial cavity and a spinal cavity, and then the specific structures. So you have to know the organization of the body, and then I have some additional structures. Usually people will print out the lab term list or have the lab term list available. You can use the book, right? You can use the PDFs that I attach. So sometimes they'll be created by me, and then sometimes they'll be created by the textbook. So here's one that I put together. So here's the brain, here's the orbital cavity, here's the buccal, here's the otic ear. So I've kind of went through and labeled all of these different cavities for you. If you get stuck, you can Google things as well, but I would stick with the PowerPoints that are here, and then your textbook as the next example. And then after that, if you need some outside sources, we all know that you could type in otic cavity and come up with 5 different images from 5 different websites, and maybe all 5 of them are correct, or maybe somebody doesn't know what they're talking about and it's not correct, right? So I would stay away from Googling unless you get stuck on something, then feel free to do it. But if you want to double check with me, that's good too. Then there's some lab videos. You can use this as another source of information. So this is somebody from the department, the natural sciences biology department, walking through with a model all of these terms. So the videos can help too. And then there's quizzes. So when you click on this lab quiz button, it's going to pull 20 questions from a pool of questions, and you have to actually type in the answer. These are key to doing well on the lab questions of your test. These are exactly like the questions I'm going to ask you for the lab component of your exam. So this is where I get the lab questions. And then if you come back up here, where do I get the lecture questions? So from these, if you can answer these review questions, then you can do well on the test. Now, remember, it's not just answering the questions. You have to be studying the questions weekly. So after you answer these chapter 1 questions, you need to go back and review them. So it's not just answer them and push them off to the side, right? You have to study and practice recalling the information. And this is just chapter 1. You're going to have chapter 2 and 3. And then usually I'll have some extra videos that are kind of just for fun. And then I tell you exactly what you have to be able to do for the very first Unit 1 exam. So this continues over and over again for all of the units. You'll have all of those resources for you. You'll have lab quizzes, you'll have lab videos, you've got lecture videos, but you see that this is it's time intensive, right? A lot of time is going to have to be devoted to this one course. So I usually tell people, it's in the syllabus, I kind of break down the time schedule for you, but I tell people this is probably about 8 to 10 hours of work a week minimum. So usually the students that do really well, they're devoting probably 10 to 15 hours a week, every week. Even if they don't have an exam, they're doing all the prep work ahead of time. So this is a very demanding course. I'm going to go down here to books. This is the textbook that's mandatory. You have to have the Mastering A&P code. Basically what's going to happen when you select Mastering A&P here, it's going to pull up. I'll show you in just a second, but mine's going to look a little bit different. It's going to pull up and you're going to say select, here we go. It's going to say, I thought I pulled it up for you. I didn't. It's going to say select the book, the mastering book to use with this, or the Pearson book to use with this course. When you do that, it's going to walk you through the registration process. So to access the mastering assignment, select the mastering tab to the left. I did put it in here. Right. Choose select mastering product to use with the course. You'll be asked to register for a mastering. If you already have an account, then use that one. If you don't, create a new one. You'll be able to buy the product directly from the publisher, or you can enter the product code, that like 16-digit code that you got with your textbook. It's usually in a little cardboard extra piece. So there's like a cardboard, and you have to rip the edges off, and you open it up and the code's inside there. You can also use the free 14-day trial. So there's no reason to not get started on your homework. You can get to it right away. After 14 days, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you need to purchase. Do you want to purchase directly through us, or do you have a code already to enter? And this is what your Pearson is going to look like. It's going to ask you questions for every chapter, and then it's going to have answers. And then you're going to select on the answers. You select once if you're unsure. You double click it if you are sure. If you get enough of the questions correct, it removes those questions and just focuses on the ones that you don't know. And so if you take the time to do the mastering, it's going to help you learn the things that you don't know. And basically you're going to get 100%. So if you work this through to completion where you're answering all the questions correctly, it's going to give you 100%. And remember, this mastering is 20% of your grade. I wanted to point out that you have to hit this little arrow in order for it to show where your progress, right? So it tells you this is about how much time it's going to take to complete this section. Right now you're at 100% accuracy, and it kind of tells you how many incorrect, how many not seen, how many you mastered, and give you messages. It'll also sometimes, if you keep missing the same question over and over again, at the bottom here, it'll say, hey, why don't you go read about this again? And so then the textbook pages will show that correspond to that question. So this is really a good tool. I hope you guys like it and use it, and I'll be getting some feedback from you at the end of the semester. Again, no laboratory purchase is required. You can just use the lab term lists and the worksheets that I give inside Blackboard. So then the last thing are the exams. You have two options. You can use HonorLock for your exams. It's a $30 fee for the semester, and that's for all exams. Do not pay individually, because I think it's $10 or $11 individually, and we have 5 exams, right? So you really want to make sure that you do the $30 semester fee at the very beginning, or you can go to the Calhoun Testing Center and use the testing center for free. So if you don't want to pay the $30, you're going to have to come to campus, either Decatur or Huntsville. If you want to take your exams at home, you can use HonorLock. Be very careful. You have to have a good internet connection, right? There will be a test for you guys. I don't think it's in there right now. I'll put kind of a little, hey, this is a test, just to make sure HonorLock is working. You can walk through the entire process before you actually have to take an exam. And then hopefully that'll alleviate some stress. But be careful, because it will flag you for anything. And then I have to watch the videos. So you cannot have your cell phone with you. You cannot have any books out. You cannot have any paper out. This HonorLock is a privilege. So if people are abusing it, or if there's suspicious activity multiple times, I can say, I'm sorry, you're no longer allowed to use HonorLock. You need to go to the testing center to take your test. So please make sure that when you're using this HonorLock software, that you're looking straight ahead. You're not constantly looking to the right or to the left. If that's your habit for trying to find an answer, you need to practice staring at the computer to find an answer, because it's going to flag you repeatedly. And like I said, multiple suspicious flags, and I can remove you from the HonorLock testing, or require you to take your test at the testing center. So I hate to end on such a depressing note, right? Like I'm yelling at you. I'm really not. This can be a fun class. You can contact me anytime. You can ask me questions. There is a discussion board as well. If you guys have questions for each other, well, it's not going to show me. There we go. If you have questions for each other, you can post them here on the Unit 1 or Unit 2, whatever, corresponding unit it is. And you guys can have communication between each other. I can answer questions. The problem with this course is that you have to be a self-learner. You have to spend the time on the course. This is not a course where you can only log in on the weekends right before an exam and cram all this information. You've seen Chapter 1 has, 2 pages worth of work that needs to be completed. So basically just stay focused, ask questions if you have them, and reach out for help if you need it. So let's have a great semester, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.